On the morning of August 8th, 1963, a quiet English countryside witnessed one of the most remarkable crimes in the annals of British history. The Royal Mail train, carrying millions of pounds in cash and valuables, was en route from Glasgow to London, unaware that a group of criminals had meticulously planned a daring heist. What followed would captivate the world's attention. A crime so audacious, so well executed, that it would forever be etched in the minds of the public as the Great Train Robbery. But this wasn't just a theft. It was the product of a criminal mastermind, a well-oiled operation, and a gang of robbers who believed they could outsmart the system and get away with it. The man who orchestrated this audacious heist was Bruce Reynolds, a criminal mastermind with a brilliant mind for strategy. Born in London in 1931, Reynolds was no stranger to the criminal underworld. His rise to fame wasn't due to sheer luck. It was due to his carefully honed skills as a planner, manipulator, and leader. Reynolds had spent years perfecting his craft, studying big-time heists and learning from the mistakes of others. But this robbery was unlike anything the world had seen before. The target wasn't just a bank or a vault. It was the Royal Mail train, a moving fortress filled with millions in cash, destined for London. Reynolds wasn't alone in his pursuit of wealth. He carefully selected a crew of men with specific skills: safecrackers, drivers, lookouts, and even a trusted insider who worked in the British railway system. His gang would need precision, patience, and skill in order to execute this plan flawlessly. And Reynolds was determined to make it happen. As he sat down with his plans, his mind worked through the intricate details of every move. He knew that this robbery had to be conducted with military precision, or it would all unravel. He had thought of everything, from how to stop the train to where to hide the money once it was taken. The plan was as daring as it was detailed. The Royal Mail train ran regularly from Glasgow to London, carrying with it not only regular mail, but also large sums of money for various businesses. But it wasn't just the cargo that attracted Reynolds. It was the route itself. The train was to pass through a remote area known as Bridego Bridge, just outside the village of Ledburn, Buckinghamshire. This location was perfect for the heist, isolated, quiet, and with few witnesses. But the key to the operation wasn't just a location. It was the way the criminals would manipulate the train's journey to make it stop at the right moment. Before the heist could even begin, Reynolds and his gang knew they had to disable the communication systems. They couldn't afford any interruptions or alarms. They cut the phone lines in the area, ensuring no one could easily contact the authorities. They even tampered with the railway signals, switching them to create a false impression of a malfunction. When the train reached the Bridego Bridge area, the crew would be forced to stop under the false assumption that something was wrong. But this wasn't just about stopping the train. It was about creating confusion, fear, and a window of opportunity. Reynolds was a master at manipulating circumstances to his advantage. On the night of August 8th, 1963, the Royal Mail train began its journey from Glasgow to London. The crew, unaware of the well-laid trap ahead, carried on with their duties. But far behind them, in the shadows of the countryside, Reynolds and his gang were waiting for the moment to strike. The train neared the Bridego Bridge, where the criminals had already set their plan into motion. As the train slowed, the robbers moved quickly and silently. They surrounded the Royal Mail carriage, overpowering the train's crew with ease. The criminals, masked and armed with clubs, took control of the situation in moments. The crew was forced to abandon their posts, leaving the robbers to execute their plan. It was a moment of intense precision. Within minutes, the robbers had uncoupled the cargo carriages filled with cash and valuables, leaving behind an empty train and an unsuspecting crew. Inside the carriages, the gang moved quickly. There was no room for hesitation. As each bag was filled with cash, the robbers kept a watchful eye for any signs of trouble. But everything went according to plan. They filled their bags with bundles of cash, neatly stacked and organized. They didn't waste a second, knowing that every minute they spent inside the train increased the risk of detection. This was a heist of precision, not brute force. Once the bags were filled, the robbers made their escape. They had set up getaway vehicles, trucks parked in a nearby field, ready to carry the loot to their hideout. The criminals had planned their route carefully. There would be no stopping them. By the time anyone noticed the robbery, they would be long gone. The gang retreated to their hideout, Leather's Lade Farm, a secluded farmhouse nestled in the heart of the English countryside. Inside, the criminals unloaded the bags of cash, marveling at the fortune they had just stolen. They counted the money, divided it amongst themselves, and took a moment to celebrate their victory. For a brief time, they believed they had won, no witnesses, no authorities in sight. They had pulled off a flawless crime. But the gang had underestimated one thing: the law. The police were quick to respond. Within hours of the robbery, Scotland Yard's finest detectives, including Jack Slipper, were at the scene. They began piecing together the puzzle, collecting fingerprints, examining evidence, and following the scant clues left behind. Despite their initial success, the robbers' arrogance would lead to their downfall. The investigation into the Great Train Robbery was nothing short of intense. Scotland Yard's detectives worked tirelessly, piecing together small clues from the scene: a fingerprint on a cash bag, a cigarette butt, even an item of clothing discarded by one of the robbers. Each clue was a potential lead. The police quickly started to zero in on their suspects, and one name kept cropping up: Bruce Reynolds. As the investigation progressed, more members of the gang were arrested. Each one, initially stoic, eventually broke under pressure, revealing the names of their accomplices. But Reynolds, the mastermind, proved difficult to catch. For years, he remained on the run, hiding in various locations across the UK before eventually being arrested in 1968. The trial of the Great Train Robbers began in 1964. The crime had captured the attention of the entire nation, and the courtroom was filled with journalists, spectators, and curious onlookers. The prosecution laid out their case in painstaking detail, showing the elaborate planning behind the robbery, the gang's actions, and the overwhelming evidence they had gathered. But the defense was relentless, attempting to sow doubt and discredit the police's findings. Ultimately, the jury found a majority of the robbers guilty, and they were sentenced to long prison terms. Bruce Reynolds, the mastermind, was convicted and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Though the robbery had been successful in the moment, the long arm of justice eventually caught up with him. The gang members, who had once believed they were untouchable, now faced the consequences of their greed and arrogance. The legacy of the Great Train Robbery endures. It wasn't just the audacity of the crime or the huge sum of money involved. It was a sense of mystery, the careful execution, and the criminals who thought they could outwit the law. Today, the site of the robbery, Bridego Bridge, still stands as a reminder of the crime. The story of the Great Train Robbery has been immortalized in books, films, and documentaries, ensuring that the criminals' daring heist will never be forgotten. The Great Train Robbery was not just about the money. It was about the people who believed they could break the law with impunity. And yet, in the end, no matter how clever the criminals were, the law always catches up. Their story serves as a timeless reminder that even the most elaborate crimes come with consequences. The Great Train Robbery is remembered not just for the money it stole, but for the audacity and skill with which it was carried out. It was a heist that captivated the world, reminding us of the risks and rewards of breaking the law. It stands as a testament to the criminals who believed they could defy the system and escape unscathed, only to be undone by their own greed and the relentless pursuit of justice. This heist, perhaps one of the most famous in history, continues to be a story of both triumph and failure, of criminals who almost got away with it but didn't.